Hey guys, Roy with Apotheca Marketing. Today we're going to talk about missing metrics from GA4 and what might be causing it. Okay, as everybody started to switch over to GA4, which you should if you haven't, because July 1st is the cutoff. You'll have no more data from Google Universal Analytics. But many companies have made the switch, and what they're starting to find is that some of the reporting is missing metrics. So we're going to take a look at some of the top causes for why your metrics might be missing from GA4. So one of the first things that you want to look for if you're missing metrics is how long ago did you set it up? So if you've added a new event or created a custom dimension or anything like that, or just turned on the reporting for the first time, if you've implemented it for the first time, most data is not going to show for at least 24 hours. So if you've added that new event, you can test it out using Google Tag Manager to do the preview mode so that you can look to see if stuff is firing, or you can look in the debug mode within the admin of GA4 and see if that is firing, if the data is coming through. If it is, then the tag is there, it's probably functioning correctly. You just need to wait a little bit longer until you start to see the data. Also, if nobody's actually clicked on it, like for instance, if you've added a new event that's a button click or something like that, and nobody's actually clicked on it, there's no associated data. So that could be the other reason. The other reason that we're seeing, and it's probably a little bit more common for data not to show in GA4, is that it hasn't been set up correctly in either Google Tag Manager or the data layer. So if you're not familiar with data layers, it's essentially a JavaScript or coding on your site that captures variables and metrics that then get passed to GA4. And a good example of this, particularly for retail sites, is that it's revenue data, it's purchase data, it's the product information, it's all of those types of things that you want to pass to GA4. It's not able to capture those without some sort of mechanism to get you that information captured on the page and pass it to you. So that's what a data layer is. That typically takes a programmer to set up. And one of the things that is often wires get crossed in specifying what needs to be added to the site. And so it just doesn't get added. So, it's not uncommon to see major events that you need to track not get tracked on the site. And so that's one of the first things that you want to look for is that information available in the data layer? The other is, was it set up in Google Tag Manager correctly? So what did you specify that event? Because just because you have information in the data layer, it's not going to get past to GA4 without something like Google Tag Manager capturing that data and triggering a tag. And so even if it's purchase data, or if it's any kind of cart related data or anything else, it's not going to automatically be passed to GA4 without setting up something in Google Tag Manager that captures the information from the data layer and then passes it to GA4. So you need to work closely with your development team. You need to make sure that Google Tag Manager is implemented correctly and that information is coming across. Part of that development process of making sure that the tags in Google Tag Manager are set up correctly and that the data layers are set up correctly, then one of the other big misses that we're seeing is that the tags are not named correctly. So in Universal Analytics, it was really common for people to come up with custom names and that type of thing. And Google didn't really care because you could define them, you could add them to reports, that kind of stuff. Well, Google has specified the naming conventions for many events that you're going to see today. So things like purchase and things like add to cart, those types of things all have a required naming convention. So you can use a different name. You can, for instance, call something like an e-commerce purchase as the event name. That information could theoretically get passed to GA4 if you're adding it to Google Tag Manager. It's going to be an event that you're going to see, but it's not going to be an event that is recognized by Google's reports. Because they've specified that name, they're going to want to see, that it's passing through. They're not going to understand that event name, e-commerce purchase, is the same as what they've determined is the default, which is purchase. So there's a number of events like that. Google does have a list of recommended naming conventions particularly for e-commerce sites. We will link to that in the description so that you can have that as an easy reference. But that is one of the most common things that we're seeing is misnaming stuff. And let me give you an example of where that comes in and where we've seen that happen. So if you look at this report here for this site, this is a user purchase journey. Okay, so this is just the funnel for the cart. And so it starts with your typical metrics. So session start, view the product, add it to the cart, begin checkout, and purchase. So, and you can actually change that down here, and you can see these metrics are coming through. So they have abandoned carts, they have purchases. We have another example of where that data is not coming through. Now we know purchases are happening because we're seeing that information, but it's not showing in this funnel because this is a step-by-step funnel, and it looks like, this is not recording. And so what we did was we looked behind the scenes, and sure enough, these events were never added to Google Tag Manager. And so the, anything after the add to cart, the begin checkout and purchase were not added. And so there's a number of recommended and required events that Google has specified in order to be recognized in this funnel. In this situation, another agency had set this up so that they did have a checkout process being monitored, but they gave them parameters of various steps in the funnel, and Google doesn't recognize that. So you can create reports based on that data. We could go into, Explore or something like that, look at the parameters that they set up, and potentially create reports, but it's not going to show up in your default reporting. So all of the reports that Google does by default in GA4 are looking at those default event names. So they have to match, and they are case sensitive. So we've had instances, for instance, where, one client had a purchase event and named the event purchase, but with a capital P. And so that event data was coming through, but not going into the reports. So any report that is a basic report in GA4, if anywhere where revenue was showing or e-commerce revenue or anything like that, it was not showing revenue because they named it incorrectly. All right, so what do you do if the name of the event is incorrect, if it's not what Google is looking for? There's really two ways that you can address this. You can do it in Google Tag Manager or in GA4 itself. Now, I would recommend definitely doing it within Google Tag Manager if you have access to Google Tag Manager. If you don't, if it was set up by a third party or your IT team controls it or something like that, then we'll show you how to do it in GA4 as well. But ideally, what you want to do is fix it at the source, which is Google Tag Manager or GTM, and change it there. So, and that's pretty easy. So what you would do is you would click into a event, and you have your tag information here, and you can see here they have this named correctly. It's the event name, but if I wanted to change this event name, I could just change it here. So I could actually, in this case, if it had an uppercase P, I could change it to lowercase, and this matches the event list that Google has. And then save that, publish it, and now that is where it's supposed to be. Now, the other thing that you can do is actually change the events or modify the events in GA4. Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but if it's the only way you can do it, or for instance, if it's going to take a long time for your IT team to make the change, or for a third-party agency or something like that to make the change, then for sure you can do it in here. And what you want to do in here is go to your admin, and you're going to look at your events, and you're going to modify an event. And so you can get a modification name. Maybe it's purchase. In this case, the example that I gave was, purchase was had to make it lowercase. So the event name equals, and you're going to look for what it is. So in this case, if it was wrong, if it was incorrect, we would look for that, and then we would give it a lowercase name, and then click create. And so what that's going to do is then create an event. It'll recognize that other event coming in, rename it, and put it in the right place in Google itself. We're not going to create this because it's wrong, and that a incorrect event doesn't exist. But so that's how you do that. And then you have a list here of those modified events. That's a good stopgap, like I said, in case that you can't add the tag yourself or modify the tag in Google Tag Manager, or if there's going to be a delay, or if you just don't have access. But that is not how I would normally do it. One of the other issues that we see with missing data is that when you have an event and it has parameters set up, if that is a custom event, if it's not one that is default, then you have to actually add a dimension to your report. So you have to come in and actually create a dimension. And so in this case, you can see here, we had created for this client a link tracking tag, and that tag had different dimensions. It had the link text that was being clicked on and the link URL. And so that information would not be available in your reporting, either in Explore or in the regular reports or in Looker Studio, without creating a dimension. So you have to do that for each of these parameters that you want to track, that it's being fired in Google Tag Manager, but Google doesn't really know about it yet. And so this is where you do to create that. And you can see this in your reporting. If you look at your events, and we're going to look at events. And if I were to click on an event, there's parameters typically related to it. This one is in a situation where it doesn't have one because it's just the default page view. But you would be able to find your parameters in one of these cards. You'd also have access to it in Explore and that type of thing. All right, so other than dimensions, weighting, and making sure that your tags are named correctly and that type of thing, one of the biggest problems that we're seeing with GA4 is kind of an inconsistency of the data points that are available across GA4's reports. And what I mean by that is, in your basic reporting, you may have a metric or a value or whatever parameter that is available in your standard reports. So in your acquisition information, you may have certain metrics that are available in here. Maybe it's different parameter information, maybe it's different campaign level information, that type of things that you can see in here, but that if you actually go to Explore and build a report, they're not available. Google claims to have done this by on purpose to make different information available for different needs. But what adds then to this level of inconsistency is that then if you go to Looker Studio to build a dashboard, it often will not be available in Looker Studio, even though it may be available in Explore, or it may be available in the standard reporting in GA4. But for whatever reason, it's not yet available in Looker Studio, or you can't filter by it. So you can't get to like a parameter or something like that in Looker Studio that you could, for instance, in Explore or something. So what this creates is a lot of back and forth about what is and isn't available in the different areas of reporting. And there is a site that we will link to that kind of documents the different data points and where you can find them and where they are available. It's kind of a cheat sheet to help you understand what may or may not be available. So if you're not seeing certain data that you saw somewhere else, whether it's in Explorer or whether it's GA4, and you're building out a Looker Studio dashboard and you just can't find that data, you're not crazy. It's probably not there. So there is not a consistent pattern to this. So it's just through experimentation and documentation that you're going to find out like what is and isn't available among the reports. So super frustrating. We get it. It's one of the problems, hopefully, that will be ironed out as GA4 is debugged and improved, but it is kind of a definite inconvenience in the reporting world. So if you're having trouble finding data, it may or may not be one of these things. It also could just be that you're not seeing it in the report, so you need to look in different reports and see how it's set up and do some exploring, because it's not always straightforward within GA4. So if you have run into this, let us know if you're seeing things that are impacting your data. We'd love to hear about it. Leave them in the comments. And if you have questions, we hope we can answer them, but leave those in the comments as well. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.